Hello, church family, and it's great to be with you, albeit on this virtual platform, which kind of sounds like something out of Harry Potter, doesn't it? In our home groups this week, whether we're doing it over Zoom or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or whatever, we're going to be developing and applying what Andy spoke about last Sunday. Now, you may be watching in your own household or by yourself, and I'm confident that there are things we can take away from Sunday's teaching that will help us to live in these unprecedented times. And hasn't there been an unprecedented increase in the use of the word unprecedented? Now, the incident Andy highlighted is in John chapter 20, verses 19 to 23. You might like to just read it again. It's where Jesus met the disciples after he was raised from the dead, and they were in lockdown. Andy and his family created a wonderful model of this story, with the disciples cooped up in a room with a locked door. Now, the disciples faced a threat they could see, the Jewish authorities and their henchmen. We face a threat that we can't see, a virus lurking in tiny water droplets or on surfaces. But the message is the same. Jesus gate-crashed their meeting to talk with them, and his headline message was, "Peace be with you." He said it twice. Don't be afraid. Now, this is such a frequent message in the Bible that it's worth us tracking some of the key moments when it emerges. So I'll give you some examples for you to talk about. Now, in each of these examples, it will be worth looking at the context, some of it will be familiar to you, in order to work out why the person was scared stiff. Why did they need to hear, "Peace be with you," or "Don't be afraid"? And then you'll see God, usually God, saying, "Don't be afraid," or something similar. And after that, have a look at what the next sentence contains. Because often God gives a promise, or he makes a prediction which shows that fear need not be our default position. Now, I've only given you 5 examples, and you don't have to do them all in your group. Actually, we could easily find a dozen more. Now, in his message, Andy told us a story about how he became caught up in a robbery in a favela. He was being threatened, and he felt really scared, and with good reason. But he said, even in that tense moment, his fear turned to peace. Now, why don't you in your group share a few examples of moments when fear has turned to peace for you? Have a chat about a few situations where God has given you peace in a situation where you might otherwise be anxious. Now, when Jesus appeared to his disciples in their lockdown, the disciples were overjoyed, and he gave them a commission. He said this, "As the Father has sent me, so I am sending you." You'll see that in verse 21. When Jesus said, "As the Father has sent me," he was using the verb apostello, which carries the idea of being commissioned by the Father in this case, to represent him, to do his task, to achieve his work. It's the word from which we get our term apostle. But the word sent that he uses for the disciples is very different. It's one that carries the idea of one thing being inserted into or thrust into another one. So the picture Jesus is conjuring up here is of us as disciples being thrust or inserted back into the very world that they were escaping from in their locked room. And that's worth talking about. Have a chat about opportunities you feel we might have as we are thrust by Jesus, with the power of his Spirit, into this curious and fear-infected world we're now living in. And then spend some time pray for each other. Okay, God bless you, my friends.